Elon and I decided to go into working in space together. And we went out there and we're like, we're doing private space. And people laughed us out of the room. If everyone thinks you're crazy, that's an opportunity for you to change the perceptions, to change reality, and turn it into what you believe is right.
Since you're a good friend with him since university time, right? So, what stays the same and what's different between Elon Musk, your college roommate back then, and Elon Musk today, which is the richest man on earth?
So many of the population of the world is moving online in Indonesia right now. You know, you really do have a beautiful opportunity to make something new.
Yeah.
That can catch on to the rest of the world, not just in Indonesia.
Hi friends, it's me, Mary Riana, and welcome to my channel. And thank you so much for always stopping by, and I really hope that you always learn something. And especially for today, I know it's a bit special because normally I speak in Bahasa and I conducted interview in Bahasa Indonesia because most of my guests are prominent figure, Indonesian entrepreneur. But today is extremely special because my guest is not Indonesian, but he is American entrepreneur and investor. His name is Adeo Ressi. He has helped to create nearly 2 billion in shareholder value by founding or running 9 businesses. And now he's also the CEO and the founder of Founder Institute, the world's largest pre-seed startup accelerator program, which is now operated in 200 cities worldwide, including now Indonesia. Oh, I'm so excited. So, Adeo Ressi, hi!
Hi there, everybody. I love Indonesia. I've been there a number of times, and I can't wait to come back once the pandemic winds down in the near future.
Thank you so much for making the time. I know, like, you are in Silicon Valley, right? Palo Alto?
Yes, I'm in Palo Alto, the heart of Palo Alto. Everything here is closed pretty much, so I have a home studio where I get to speak to people all around the world. We have an office, but we've asked people to work from home here in Silicon Valley. We also have other offices in India, Bulgaria, and different places where we've done the same. So interesting times for sure these days.
Yeah, that's great. And what time is it now in your place?
I think it's 7:15 a.m. So
Thank you so
kids are
much.
getting up.
Yeah, it's 10 p.m. In Jakarta right now. So, like, thank you for making the time.
Of course.
Yeah. And first of all, of course, congrats to your new president, Joe Biden.
That's been a very nice occurrence. We've had a successful transfer of power. There are a lot of people who liked both gentlemen, Donald Trump and Biden, and there certainly was some worries that it wouldn't go so smoothly, but it seemed to go really smoothly. People seem to be happy, and hopefully the American government will return to business as usual. I think in the final days, there was a lot of election fraud claims and very distracting.
Yeah, so hopefully this will definitely bring a positive sentiment, right? Not just for US, but for the world as well.
I hope so.
Okay, all right. So you mentioned that you actually now based in California, but I understand that before this you actually grew up and spent most of your time in East Coast America. right? You grew up in.
Yes, I have lots of relatives on the East Coast in New York, Connecticut, and up and down the coast, actually. And I grew up mostly in New York City. And in fact, the two first billion-dollar companies that I created were both launched in New York City. And what would happen is I would create this company, might get, let's say, worth $1 billion. And then I would look on the West Coast and the same company would be worth $6 billion.
Oh.
And I was saying to myself, okay, wait a minute. What's the difference here? You know, I have lots of revenues. I'm growing really quickly. They have lots of revenues. They're growing really quickly. It was literally just the geography. It seemed that tech companies were more valuable in Silicon Valley and on the West Coast. So I decided, well, hey, I'm in the business of starting tech companies. I might as well go to the West Coast.
Yeah.
And then I realized at that point that why are they more valuable on the West Coast? That doesn't make any sense, right? It's not that much better here than anywhere else in the world. So I launched the Founder Institute to really help tech entrepreneurs all around the world create businesses that were valuable wherever they are, Central Asia, Indonesia, wherever.
Okay, all right. And that's is the motto of Founder Institute, right? To globalizing Silicon Valley.
Right. So there's a lot of positive things that happen here, and we carry that mindset and that methodology everywhere that we operate. And we're in roughly 220 something cities around the world right now, and literally every inhabited time zone with the exception of two, like Greenland and New Zealand, and we're opening in New Zealand. So we'll be in almost every inhabited time zone except one shortly.
Okay, that's great. Before we talk more about Founder Institute, right? I'm very excited to actually start a Founder Institute Indonesia as well, starting this February. But I realized there's this very interesting facts that you studied at University of Pennsylvania, and that's when you met Elon Musk, and you become a college roommate and even close friend until today. Can you tell us more about that experience?
Yeah, Elon. Well, it's kind of a crazy story because we were both transfer students, and for anyone who's transferred into a university, it can be a strange experience, right? Because what happened in our particular case is both of us were put into freshman dorms, even though we were not freshmen, we were sophomores. And, freshman dorms can be a less than pleasant experience. So I was looking to move out of the freshman dorms as quickly as possible. And I was going around to different people and saying like, hey, do you want to move out of freshman dorms? And a lot of people were like, well, I don't want to buck the system. I just transferred in. They put me in freshman dorms. But Elon was interested in doing it. And the way that I had thought to pay for proper housing was to start a nightclub in the house, and he was excited to do that. So we ended up starting a nightclub together and moved out of freshman dorms right as we transferred into the University of Pennsylvania. So it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, so like it's the first entrepreneurship journey. I mean, like, I mean, like in a fun way. Yeah.
Right. There was a lot of there were a lot of crazy stories about operating a nightclub in your house in college. For the most part, it went very well. I can tell you one thing that a lot of people don't know about Elon, but I mean, it could be deduced and obvious. He's very, very trustworthy. So I could literally hand him my wallet and be like, in college when everyone's poor and temptations are high, I could literally hand him my wallet and be like, "Could you hold this? I need to go do something." And it, I might be worried it would get stolen. And in fact, many times I did hand him my wallet, and we might have other people who would be involved in the parties. And there were only two people that had access to the money. It would be me and Elon. And I got to tell you, I mean, you had a big draw filled with money, and you were a poor student. It was definitely tempting to
good temptation, right?
But he's probably one of the most trustworthy people that I've ever met. Like, you could trust him with the cash draw when you're extremely poor. You could trust him with your wallet when you're extremely poor. He's very, very trustworthy individual.
Wow. That's great. It's a man of integrity. Yeah. One last question about Elon before we move on to the Founder Institute. So, I mean, since you're a good friend with him since university time, right? So, what stays the same and what's different between Elon Musk, your college roommate back then, and Elon Musk today, which is the richest man on earth? What stays the same and what's different?
I think he's number two again. Him and Jeff Bezos are
up and down.
Bouncing up and down. Yeah. I mean, I think I read yesterday that he fell back to number two. Let's start with a couple points about that before I answer the question. So, there's a lot of things that Elon is doing that no one really knows about. And there's a lot of things that Jeff Bezos are doing that no one knows about. And there's a lot of other super rich people that nobody knows about. So I don't think that, saying that he's the richest man in the world, he probably is up there. But I promise you there's some, sheik from the Middle East or something like that if you actually were to tally their real wealth would be certainly wealthier than Bezos and Elon. Now with that said, he's doing a lot of interesting things, many of which, as I said, aren't really spoken about or known about, and many of the most valuable things, like maybe Starlink, aren't really measured correctly in terms of what their value is. Like, Starlink has the ability to provide every human being on the planet with extremely fast internet without any wires. I mean, it's 100 megabits down anywhere. Now it's based on where the satellites are, but right now it's pretty much anywhere north in the more northern hemisphere, and it works through snow. So if you have a little thing on your roof and there's tons of snow on it, it works through snow. So I mean, that could be more valuable than anything that Amazon's created, for example. But back to the question. So he's largely the same individual.
Wow. All right.
He's very determined. If he would, when we were in college, if he couldn't win a video game, he would claim that the game is broken. And in fact, in many cases, it was broken. Literally, like, no one ever expected someone to get to level whatever 900. So there was some flaw in the game at that level. And he would be like, I can't win, the game is broken. So he's very determined. He's very thoughtful in his approaches. And so, the Elon of today is really the same Elon that he was many years ago. A couple things. I wish he could be a bit happier. He works a lot. He works more than anyone that I know. Yeah. In a lot of interviews and things, he says he doesn't work that much, but as someone who knows him, he works a lot. Like right now, he's basically sleeping on site building a factory.
Okay.
And he's notorious for sleeping on site at Tesla, sleeping on site at SpaceX when something's needed, and he needs to have his full energy and mental acuity attuned to a problem. He's just like, why do I need to get in a car and commute an hour each way or whatever? I'm just gonna find a pillow in a conference room and sleep there. So that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
The one area that he has changed, though, is he notoriously hates public speaking, and he has to do it quite a bit.
Okay.
So he's taken the time to improve his public speaking skills, so that he's not. I mean, it used to be horrible to watch him on stage. It would be really just and I would plead with him. I'm like, please, I'll help you, like whatever. There's basic tricks to public speaking, so you can be tolerable. And so over the years, he's employed many of these techniques. Now he even makes jokes when he's on stage, which he used to never do. So it's come a long way, his stage presence.
Yeah, every master was once a disaster, right? It's by time,
Well, he doesn't like it, so he doesn't even want to master it, right? He's like, why do I even have to do this? Like, I bet you if he could hire someone to be his stage persona, he would do it in a heartbeat. But it's hard because, he's, in many cases, he's the CEO of these companies, and he's the lead designer engineer. So he holds two roles in most of the companies, and so then he might have like Gwen, who's the president of SpaceX, but Elon's both the CEO and lead architect of these companies. So he also therefore has to be the face man because he knows the most about the business and the product.
All right. Good. I mean, from what you shared, it's actually confirmed one thing that every successful entrepreneur, regardless of their business industries, where they come from, they always have this DNA of entrepreneur, right? Like that DNA in you, in Elon, is already there even when even when you are still in university. That kind of determination, that kind of like a spirit. Right, and that's why you started this Founder Institute, right? Because you believe that certain people, they have this entrepreneur DNA that is there, and that's how you help them to actually become better, right?
So we've studied the science of success and entrepreneurship, and I'll try and explain what we've learned, and I'll keep it short because we learned a lot. But the high level learning is that there's, and I draw an analogy to basketball. If you're tall and you play basketball, you're in a much better position to be successful playing the game than if you're short. Now, there's something called a point guard, which is the person that runs around and passes it to the tall person. But even in the NBA, which is the big basketball league here in the United States, the point guards are tall. Everyone's tall, right? I mean, there are taller people than the point guards playing the game, but a point guard is my height, and I'm very tall by most people's standards. So that height, that genetic height, predisposes you to be a better basketball player. Similarly, there's a bunch of traits that an entrepreneur has that predisposes them to be more successful. Now, with that said, there are small basketball players that are very successful. And they're entrepreneurs that don't necessarily have those traits that are also very successful. So this is not deterministic, but it is helpful. So what we try to do is find the people that have the traits, the natural capabilities to be successful as an entrepreneur by asking people to participate in a short and fun test. And we show you the results of that test so you can see your own traits and see how you do, if you will.
Right, right. Yeah, because there's a good DNA and there's a bad DNA, right?
Well, it's let's put it this way. I think it's all good,
All right.
right? And so I don't. There's nothing bad, but there are definitely things that make it easier for an entrepreneur to succeed. So
Okay.
the things that make it easier for an entrepreneur to succeed, like being tall in basketball, there's something called fluid intelligence, and fluid intelligence is the ability to switch very quickly between things. So this morning, I was getting ready, kids, whatever, and then jumped on an interview here with you. So I was able to have some family stuff and immediately switch into business mode, right? With entrepreneurs, this happens all the time. So the fluid intelligence ability to switch very quickly between things, you could have your CTO come in and be like, the servers are down, and then your head of finance come in and be like, someone stole money, and then someone else come in and be like, this happened, and you're constantly switching to deal with whatever the business presents. And that is a very common situation in entrepreneurship where just stuff happens very quickly and you need to quickly adapt and respond, and your mind needs to switch to the problem that you're facing. And the scientific term is called fluid intelligence, your ability, and you can measure that actually. And that's one of the things we test for. Another really big one is what social scientists call openness. Openness, the inverse of openness is closed-minded. So the more open-minded you are, the more you can see the world for what it is, not what you want it to be. And this is important, right? Because if you have a problem, you need to be able to see it in the business, right? A lot of people don't really look at the world around them, right? So what happens is you form this mental model, and that mental model might be like, the business is going great, it grows every day or every week, and look, it's still growing, but there could be a problem, right? And if you rely too much on your mental model and you're not open to looking at what's really happening, you miss both problems and opportunities. And so the more open-minded you are, the more you see the world the way it is, the more opportunities that you see, the more problems you see, and that's very successful for an entrepreneur to have that ability themselves. So there's some other things like being determined and some other traits that are important, but those are definitely the top two.
All right. Yeah, I mean, it's great that like Founder Institute actually provide us with this assessment, so that at least we as well, we as an entrepreneur, we also like get ourselves self-test, so we can really see like how open we are, and like how is our DNA test and so on, right?
Yeah, we just completed a new version of the test, and we actually have 27 different attributes that we measure of your personality, and we'll show you them all at the end of the questions. And it only takes it can take under an hour, about half an hour to complete, depending on how quickly you go. So you can see all these attributes, not your trustworthiness, your industriousness, as well as openness, fluid intelligence, and other things. So, I would recommend you can go to fi.co/DNA and learn more about it. It's definitely something that if you're thinking of going on an entrepreneurial journey, you should definitely look at learning more about yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, because being self-aware, and that's one of the things we were talking about Elon before, all great entrepreneurs are very self-aware. right? They are introspective. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? How are my strengths and weaknesses helping me? And how are my strengths and weaknesses hurting me? And then what can I do to amplify the strong parts of my personality and minimize the weak parts of my personality?
Okay, yeah, it's definitely a great helps. Like awareness is the beginning of a changes, right? Yeah. So tell me more about the success story of FI graduates, because you started this Founder Institute back in 2009. Am I right?
Yeah. Yes.
What?
To late 2009.
Okay. What are the success story of the FI graduates? So it can inspire others as well.
Sure. We've created a lot of value in the world. Probably now in excess of $40 billion of shareholder value from the different companies we've created. So you have very big companies worth billions of dollars. There's a large company out of China. You've got Udemy. You've got a big company out of Vietnam, Apoda. And so we have big companies actually throughout the world, from Asia, Europe, America. Then you've got a lot of companies in the multi-$100 million range, Realty Mogul and the like, and they're heading towards the $1 billion level. We have a relatively new company called Fight Club, which is cresting towards $1 billion right now. So we have a second tier of more recent graduates that are getting to the $1 billion level, and then we have lots and lots of newer companies that are in the millions or tens of millions of dollars of value and growing quickly as well. And what we're finding is, and this is true in the world, when you see a company like Slack, or you see a company like, and you're like, oh, that's such a big company. How did they get so big so quickly? Slack is, over 10 years old, like the Founder Institute, right? And, it was not born yesterday. It might feel like it was born yesterday because you discovered it yesterday. So a lot of these overnight big tech companies are taking around 10 years or so to get to their so if you look at the Founder Institute, a lot of our very biggest companies are the oldest ones. A lot of the multi-$100 million companies are in the middle, like 5 or so years, and a lot of the tens of millions of dollar companies are the more recent ones. So it is, when you're going into entrepreneurship in 2021, you're really looking at a multi-year journey to success. Now, I'll throw something out that's been very interesting.
Yeah.
So the pandemic has actually done something that in 11 years or over 10 years of running the Founder Institute, plus over 26 years being an entrepreneur myself, I've only seen once before. And this was really the dot-com boom. So in the dot-com boom, you could create a $1 billion company in a very short period of time, because there was so much money and so much interest coming in that it allowed these truly overnight successes to occur. And many of them were overnight successes and then overnight failures, right? So big success and then big failure. We're seeing this overnight success is happening again with the pandemic. I've seen companies, graduates of the Founder Institute, acquire customers that might have normally taken them years. They've done that in weeks. So we had a company, have a company that was providing telemedicine services in India, but they were exclusively used for second opinions because India had made telemedicine illegal, essentially. So obviously the pandemic hit, India's like, we've got to legalize primary care telemedicine. So they switched the law, and this company was already doing telemedicine, but for second opinions, and it just exploded. It just, and it raised money, and again, acquired customers in like that would take years in days and weeks. So the pandemic and right now, I believe is one of like in the last few decades, last 3 decades, it's one of the most interesting times in history to start a business because there's so much change and so much disruption that you can do things in a very short period of time that would normally take years.
Yeah, that's very true. In fact, it really happens in Indonesia as well. How like we adapt quickly and we accelerate. Like for example, like in the past, I never do teleconference or like using Zoom. But because of pandemic now, it really becomes a lifestyle, you know, like this technology, using technology to learn, to have meetings and to do broadcastings even. Yeah, so that's a huge opportunity. Yeah, so
yeah,
I
well,
totally
one of our graduates started a company called Remo. And so there's about 4 or 5, so there's Zoom, which is conferencing. There's Remo, which does more events. There's Hopin, which does events. There's AirMeet that does events. You know, Zoom was pretty big before the pandemic. Those other 3, Remo, Hopin, and AirMeet, all were post-pandemic companies that are worth, you know, tens of millions to hundreds of millions of dollars. Again, you know, overnight. It's been only a few months since less than a year since the pandemic really first hit the world, and you know, you've had these multi-hundred million dollar companies emerge out of nowhere. So it's been, it's an exciting time. You know, it's a terrible time on one hand, but from an entrepreneurship, and let's just talk about that for a second. We need the change that is happening as a result of the pandemic, right? We need it. Humanity needs the changes that are happening as a result of the pandemic. We were destroying our planet and our world, and we were leaving a broken environmental ecosystem for our children. And I have 3 children, and you know, they worry deeply about the environment, and I can tell you that there's been more people used to say, oh, we're never going to get off our addiction of oil, it's never going to stop. Well, oil went negative. Okay, the price of oil went negative because no one wanted it. Okay, well, that seems like we got off our addiction to oil. Like, you know, seems to me that actually happened. And overnight, right? People say, oh, you know, we're never gonna, you know, everyone's travel is here to stay. Everyone travels all the time. Well, you know, I haven't traveled.
Me too.
Like, right? I used to travel 100,000 plus miles a year, and you know, I'm pretty much close to 0 in the last. So where I'm going with all these examples is that we've seen things that we thought were impossible to change overnight. And that should be a great inspiration to anyone who wants to start a business today, that you can change the world overnight and make it more beautiful for the next generations. You can launch a business that achieves great value and makes the world a better place at the same time And you can do that in a very, very short period of time. And I think the pandemic, while it's been horrible, the loss of life and the many things that have happened that are truly unfortunate, it has shown us that we can do very hard things, like creating the first mRNA vaccine in RNA vaccine in history overnight. I was actually talking with my oldest daughter about RNA last night at the dinner table. So,
wow, what is it?
I'm like, wow, you're a freshman in high school learning about RNA. I don't remember when I first learned about it, but it wasn't a freshman in high school, that's for sure. Anyway, it's very interesting times, a beautiful time to start a business.
That's true. It's really the best time, because right now there's so many problems in the world, and every problem is actually an opportunity, right? If we have the solution for that problem, it's actually an opportunity. And entrepreneur basically is the solutions to solve all those problems. And I like the way you mentioned impact, because again, we know entrepreneur, we have to earn income, but eventually it's not just about the income, but the impact that we create to the world, to this society, right? That's the one that really matters.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because you just touched on probably one of the biggest misperceptions in the world today. Okay. A lot of people think, and especially in developing countries, right? And Indonesia, is coming up very quickly. The development's amazing. It's really a beautiful place in the world in many ways. It has improvements, of course. But we all have improvements, right? So a lot of people believe, hey, you got to make money, and then impact is different, right? And a lot of people then assume that if you're going to have impact, it's got to be a non-profit, right? Because it can't make money and have impact. And that's just actually, remember we were talking before, if you're open-minded, you see the world the way it is. And if you're closed-minded, everything fits your mental model. So the idea that you can't have a very profitable business that is impactful is a mental model that is wrong, right? And you could argue Tesla, right? One of the most valuable companies in the world, right? It's a car company on one hand, but honestly, it's the only reason he's doing it is because he wants to make cars that are environmentally amazing to the planet. So his charging network runs on solar wherever possible, right? So that you don't even need to burn fossil fuels or use nuclear fuels to charge the vehicles in the public charging places. So, he's creating Elon is creating Tesla to be an environmental and an impactful company. And it's one of the most valuable companies in the world. So this idea that you can have to make money and that may not have impact. And if you want to have impact, it should be a nonprofit. This is just a mental model that is wrong, right? So if you look at the next 10 years, 9 years, there's something called the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and there's 17 of them.
Okay.
And basically the UN said, look, the world's in trouble, and we need to stop destroying the world. And here are 17 things that we can do for our societies and for the planet to make us live in harmony with the natural environment and live, above the poverty line, etc. And if we do all 17 things, we will live sustainably. And I believe we're going to hit those 17 goals by 2030, which is the target. And in order to do that, there are dozens, really hundreds. There's 169 goals, sub goals to the 17. Okay. Almost every one of them is at least one or more multi-billion-dollar businesses.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
So if you're looking to work on something that has impact and can make money, and you're looking for a problem set, we've actually turned the 169 goals into businesses, like what we call IKPIs, impact key performance indicators. And if you go to fi.co/for-progress, you can search. You can be like, I want to work on poverty. You literally have search fields to start searching for the IKPIs, searching through the sub goals, and it will show you business ideas that you can work on for profit that can be billion-dollar companies. But I would say that I'm gonna take it a step further. Sustainability is not the goal.
Then
we have it would be like bringing in a patient into a hospital that's been badly injured and being like, we'll keep you alive, but we'll leave your injuries in place. We won't actually try and fix you. We'll just keep you alive, right? We've done damage to the planet, and it is not enough for us just to get sustainable, because then we're going to keep an injured patient alive. We need to regenerate. So the 169 sub goals and the IKPIs are all multi-billion-dollar business ideas to keep the patient alive, and we definitely want to keep the patient alive. Right? But I also think we want to help that patient recover.
That's true. And
be even more positive, even better, right? And that's regeneration. So I think the Sustainable Development Goals present many billion-dollar ideas, and then this idea of regenerating the planet and making it even better is another set of many billion-dollar ideas.
Yeah. Thank you for highlighting that to us. And like, basically the clue is already there, the list is already there. You just, you can just choose which one that is really a solution, because the problem is already there. Because most entrepreneurs sometimes we think this is the solution, but actually it's not directly to tackle the world's problem. We think that's a problem according to our own perception, but it's not really the real problem out there, right? So when you already have like the list, is very helpful. You can have the.
Can I talk about that as well with you for a second? And so I think that so at the Founder Institute, we spend a lot of time with founders, and you're going to spend a lot of time with founders. Aiming the gun, so to speak, right? So when, there's a joke, ready, fire, aim. That is modern entrepreneurship, is ready, fire, aim. People are like, I think I see a problem, right? And they don't do it, no research. They're like, children, they need more candy. Right? It's like, I don't know. Who said children need more? Do parents want to buy children? Who said that? I just know children need more candy. Like, okay. So spending time to understand the problem that you're trying to solve, working on the biggest possible problem that you are passionate about, making sure that problem really exists is very, very, very important. And that's called customer development. A lot of entrepreneurs, because they have these mental models that they've built up over years, in their mind, they're like, oh, kids need candy, for sure. And in fact, if they went out and spoke with parents, if they went out and spoke with kids, a lot of times their mental model is wrong, right? even if you're incredibly open-minded, you will build a business on a mental model, not on reality. And I'll take this one step further. What is reality, right? Reality is what you make it. It's your mental model. So the most successful entrepreneurs have what's called the reality distortion field. And it's not, all you're doing is you're saying, if you get very successful, you say to people, what you think is wrong, and there's a better way. And, not to go back to Elon, but, I started working in space with Elon. Elon and I decided to go into working in space together. And we went out there and we're doing private space. And people laughed us out of the room. They're like, what are you two doing? Like, two .com, we were called .com millionaires, are coming to work in space.
Private space travel, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, space is the domain of governments and large companies. Okay. What are like two dudes? And we're like, no, we're gonna do stuff in space, and they literally they would laugh.
Okay.
And then not only that, Elon was like, I'm gonna start a rocket company, and I'm like, okay. There's crazy, which you could argue we were by working in space to begin with. And then there's extra crazy, which would be creating a rocket company. You've gone extra crazy. And look what happened. He's vertically landing rockets. So if everyone thinks you're crazy, that's an opportunity for you to change the perceptions, to change reality, and turn it into what you believe is right. And you should never be, the bigger the problem that you work on, the crazier it will seem that you're going to be successful. But, right now, we need people working on really, really, really big problems. In fact, I would say you should challenge yourself to find the biggest problem that you're passionate about and work on it, because otherwise we're in trouble. I'll tell a story that is the world today, synopsized very simply. So we drilled giant holes in the earth in Australia to rip out stuff from the ground that we ship to China, and we turn into steel that we then ship to America to destroy an area of land and build a bridge so that we can have a road so that someone can travel an hour a day to a job that they don't like and doesn't matter. Okay? That's what we've built. We've built this destructive system, and no one's even happy, right? We've destroyed land in Australia, ruined the environment in China, and built something so that people can lose a couple hours a day commuting, doing something they don't even want to do.
Never thought of that until you brought it up.
It doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
This is what we've built, and this is what we're handing to our children, and we're saying, have a great life. No, that's not a great life. We need to reinvent everything that we do from the ground up so that our lives can be beautiful. The things that we work on are important, and that we can be proud of the planet that we are passing on to our children as an inheritance of a beautiful future.
Wow. It takes a lot of hard work, but it's possible, right? That's why we are not doing it alone. You need to have the whole world to have the same visions and really do it together. And that's why Founder Institute right now is not just in Silicon Valley, but it's all over the place, all over cities in the world, right? Yeah. What's your view?
We believe that everywhere there are entrepreneurs that see a vision for a brighter future and are ready to take the steps to realize it. And we're here to help however we can so that you can change the world around you and make it into something more beautiful for yourself, your family, your employees, your country, and the next generations.
Okay. What is your view on Asia startup, like especially in Indonesia? Yeah.
Oh, I mean, so look, in many ways, Indonesia is one of the most important countries in the world today because it has one of the largest amount of population moving into the digital economy of any other place on earth, right? So Indonesia has the largest number of human beings coming from a pre-internet society to a post-internet society right now. And so that's happened in much of the rest of the world, not everywhere. That's happening in Africa, that's happening in parts of the Middle East, and it's happening in Central Asia. But Indonesia, it's happening right now at the biggest scale anywhere on the planet. So I think the opportunity is enormous to really be thoughtful about what you want that world to look like, right? So you can look at models of the West, and I can tell you the internet is not doing well over here.
Really?
Twitter is disgusting. Facebook is not well. It has bad intentions, right? It's essentially selling your user information and treating you without respect. And so the internet models of the West right now are pretty poor. So I think Indonesia, with all this internet opportunity happening right now, has a real beautiful moment to make the internet what is right for you. And I know that like you have there's a lot of things about Indonesians. They like to have multiple SIM cards, and so you already are making a very unique form of the internet in Indonesia. And I would encourage you to think of how you can make the internet of Indonesia an Indonesian internet, a more beautiful internet. And then rather than copying the West, and I can tell you right now, the West has done a poor job. And one way it's poor is that there's a lot of older white men, I'm an older white man, that have built the internet, and it's not a very diverse, if you look at all the big companies, we talk about Elon, there's Jeff Bezos, there's, all these companies are run by older white men, right? And maybe Facebook with Zuckerberg's a little younger white man, but it's still somewhat older white men. So
yeah, but the older one have experience, have money, have connections to the market, have like everything, right?
Yeah, but we need the internet if the internet is a tool to be used by the people of humanity, then it needs to represent the people that build the tools, the people that make the different components of the internet need to reflect the users, right? So we need women, different minorities, different sexual preferences involved in the leadership of the companies that form the backbone of this technology that's going to truly democratize access on the planet. And if it's just white men, that's not good.
Yes. Thank you for that. It's very encouraging to hear that. Yes, there's possibility the next Twitter, the next founder, the next YouTube come from Indonesia, right? Who knows?
Very likely. I hope so. Well, as I said, so many of the population of the world is moving online in Indonesia right now. You really, really do have a beautiful opportunity to make something new that can catch on to the rest of the world, not just in Indonesia.
Yeah. Thank you. Last questions. Any message or advice for the upcoming Founder Institute Indonesia's that's going to start in February? The founders?
Yeah. So look, I starting a company is hard, and the Founder Institute is also hard. Anyone who's graduated from the Founder Institute and gone on and built this successful business, they all say the same thing. The running the business is a lot harder than the Founder Institute. So what we're trying to do with the Founder Institute is prepare you for the challenges of building a company. So it's like training for a marathon, right? You don't just go out there and run 26 and a half miles. You go and do smaller runs and then longer runs and then longer runs until your body is ready to go. And entrepreneurship is very similar. It's a long distance, challenging endeavor. And you need to sort of prepare yourself to go on that journey. And the Founder Institute tries to cram as much preparation as possible into 3.5 months. And, 80% of the companies that we help to create are alive after 5 years. 65% of them are doing very well. So we prepare people much better than just on your own, because the failure rate on your own is inverted. About 80% of tech companies fail within 5 years. So we've inverted the failure rate by really preparing you. So what I would say is, if you're really passionate about the idea, it's not necessarily going to be easy. So stick with it and you'll build something meaningful.
Thank you. Thank you for the encouragement. Thank you for the advice. And especially thank you for your time. Your sharing is really very insightful and very encouraging. And thank you so much for being an inspiration for people to achieve their greatness. And that's
hopefully everyone in the program will. And it's really been an honor and pleasure to work with you guys as well. I would love, please invite me to do some sessions in office hours with the different Indonesian teams. I'd love to meet the different founders in a group setting and one-on-one. So excited for that as well.
Yes, I'm looking forward to visit you in Silicon Valley when the pandemic is over.
We'll go. I'll come there and you guys come here, please.
All right. So thank you so much. Stay safe, stay healthy, most importantly. And stay happy.
You too, guys. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye. Eits, tunggu dulu. Jangan lupa untuk subscribe ya dan klik link di bawah ini. Jangan lupa juga untuk klik tombol loncengnya. Oke? Terima kasih.
kering dan mati tanpa hijaunya tumbuhan. Demikian kalau mimpi tak kunjung terjadi.